The United States Defense Industrial Base, or DIB, is a massive network of private contractors handling the supply chain for the military. Because of the technical data passing through these systems, the network is a continuous target for threat actors seeking to intercept or corrupt it. To secure that supply chain, the Department of Defense is rolling out the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program, commonly known as CMMC. This new framework enforces a strict set of required cybersecurity standards across the entire defense ecosystem. The organizations subjected to these rules span deep into heavy industry. Building physical assets like naval destroyers requires complex manufacturing workflows, thousands of subcontractors, and constant data sharing. Under this new mandate, if an organization handles controlled unclassified information, or CUI, within its network, it is automatically required to achieve CMMC Level 2 certification. CUI is sensitive federal data that requires strict safeguarding and dissemination controls under government regulations. Reaching and maintaining that specific certification is expensive. For most defense contractors, preparing for the official audit requires a mandatory baseline investment well into the six figures. The framework effectively hardens the overarching national defense infrastructure, but it shifts the financial and technical burden directly onto the individual contractors. For security professionals in the sector, the immediate challenge is figuring out how to absorb that capital hit. A contractor's strategy for allocating its compliance budget dictates whether the investment generates long-term value or permanent overhead. Many organizations try to minimize the pain by treating compliance as a simple checklist. They hire consultants to find the fastest, cheapest path to pass the official assessment, conducted by a certified third-party assessment organization, or C3PAO. A company hits the certification achieved milestone, but immediately after, operational throughput takes a steep drop. Manufacturing slows down. As new security measures constantly fight the existing workflow, hidden operational costs begin to rise, compounding infinitely over time. When an organization forces generic security protocols into a complex manufacturing environment purely to pass an inspection, they generate massive technical debt. The resulting network friction touches every department. Rushing through the certification process without mapping it to the underlying architecture damages the contractor's ability to operate efficiently. Over the life of the business, those daily bottlenecks cost significantly more than a strategic compliance upgrade. To understand why this friction happens, we have to look at the starting baseline of most defense contractors. Many established contractors rely on legacy infrastructure. These are deeply entrenched, older systems built long before modern cybersecurity frameworks were drafted. During a compliance gap analysis, these older networks consistently fail in two major areas. Data storage and transmission are frequently unencrypted, and identity access management practices are weak. Correcting these vulnerabilities under CMMC Level 2 requires the organization to implement exactly 110 distinct security requirements. The 110 requirements must blanket the existing architecture, demanding heavy upgrades in access control, incident response, and configuration management. The heaviest friction occurs in blurred boundary zones, where sensitive project files bleed into general company systems, requiring strict network segmentation to isolate them. Forcing 110 complex security rules onto unsegmented, outdated hardware is an immense engineering challenge. That modernization effort accounts for the bulk of the initial compliance spending. Faced with that massive engineering hurdle, contractors often default to the audit-only strategy to force a quick fix. Rather than redesigning the network, some consulting providers simply bolt generic security software onto the existing legacy framework, checking boxes solely to satisfy the Cyber AB assessors. The Cyber AB is the official accreditation body that oversees the CMMC ecosystem. The resulting network becomes choked with overlapping, unintegrated tools that clash with one another. When pulling a CAD file or updating a supply manifest, data packets hit redundant controls. The system drags, and actual business velocity drops. The written policies governing these new tools are often drafted in a vacuum, entirely disconnected from how floor supervisors and engineers actually do their jobs. Once auditors leave and the certificate is framed, the internal IT team is left managing a convoluted governance structure that's nearly impossible to maintain. This fast-track method succeeds at generating a piece of paper, but it breaks the native workflows of the company. security turns from an asset into a daily operational hazard. The alternative is to approach compliance as an engineering problem, integrating security directly into the company's existing operational model. This strategy relies heavily on risk-based prioritization. It identifies exact vulnerabilities and deploys resources specifically to address them, avoiding a uniform, inefficient blanket of security across the entire company. Financially, it acknowledges that not all 110 controls require the same level of capital investment. A smart architecture focuses the heaviest spending where the risk is highest. By drawing a strict boundary around a segmented CUI enclave, sensitive data is tightly secured, leaving the rest of the network unobstructed. Because these controls are optimized for the specific environment, data passes through the pipelines without bottlenecking. The guiding engineering rule here is simple. A security architecture must actively support existing business workflows, not constantly interrupt them. By targeting capital precisely at high-risk data boundaries, contractors eliminate operational friction. They achieve strict regulatory compliance while maintaining their daily production speeds. Moving these engineering principles beyond the server room changes how the organization measures its overall performance. This is the core methodology championed by assessment organizations like the Business Transformation Institute, or BTI. BTI operates as both a Cyber AB licensed training provider and an authorized C3PAO. While a traditional consulting model focuses narrowly on hitting specific certification milestones, BTI integrates cybersecurity improvements into a broader, company-wide operational transformation. This dashboard illustrates the difference in how these two models measure success. The checklist approach yields static, binary results. By contrast, an operational transformation model measures performance over time, tracking continuous upward trends in efficiency and corresponding drops in risk exposure. When process development is integrated directly with cybersecurity maturity, it creates measurable business performance trends that deliver value long after the CMMC certificate is printed. The Department of Defense has set the terms. CMMC compliance is now the absolute defining requirement for any organization wanting to participate in the defense supply chain. Contractors can no longer afford to view this mandate as a sunk cost or a short-term audit exercise. That perspective creates too much operational drag. A sustainable strategy requires 3 pillars: aligning security with business efficiency, prioritizing capital based on risk, and driving continuous operational improvement. These stringent protocols exist to protect highly sensitive national security assets and the industrial base that produces them. When leadership successfully aligns those 3 pillars, they permanently eliminate redundant software spending and stop the long-term bleed of operational debt. By building security requirements directly into standard operating procedures, defense contractors transform a heavy regulatory requirement into a state of measurable cybersecurity resilience.